Uh, Hello student, myself Pankaj Kumar, working as a assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Application. Today we are discussing about the statistical hypothesis. So move to the our point. Statistical hypothesis. A statistical hypothesis test is a method of statistical interface used to decide whether the data whether the data sufficiently support a particular hypothesis. A statistical hypothesis test typically involve a calculation of test statics. This means a statistical hypothesis basically test the whole population as a sample. Whenever we have whenever we have a population in which some small amount of quantity extract from the population, and the small portion of the subset of the population is known as sample. Whenever we go to the doctor and doctor to test report, and and the report is generated by the physicians is the process of hypothesis, whether you have a positive report, whether either you negative report. So this is the hypothesis. A statistical hypothesis is an assumption about a population parameter. So basically, whenever we test about a sample, it shows the population parameters, what we have in the population. For instance, we might measure the mean height of males in the US in is 70 inches. If we suppose the height of the US male is 76 inches, this is the our test hypothesis. In this case, the assumption about the height represent the statistical hypothesis, and the true mean height of US males serves as the population parameters. First of all, we take the samples of the US people of the male for the parameter of height. Then we measure the 70 inch centimeter, 70 inches. So it means that it represent the US male population height is 70 inches. So basically the test of hypothesis focuses on the sample size, but as well as it more concerned about the population. Hypothesis that is made based on the some limited evidence collected is known as hypothesis. It is the beginning part of the study that translate research questions into prediction that might or might not be true. Basically, in research purpose, we are using the hypothesis, whether we are going to the right track, or you in diverted from the your mean directed from the main path. It depends on the variables and the population used, also the relation between the variables. It also depend the variables, what variable we have chosen from, and population, what type of population we are used, and relation between the variables also. The hypothesis is used to test the relationship between the two or more variables is known as research hypothesis. Hypothesis property should be empirically tested, irrespective of being right or wrong. Whether First of all, we the first property of hypothesis is basically whether any object is right or wrong. We first test it should establish the relationship between the variables that are considered. What variable we have chosen, it should be the relationship between the variable. It must be specific, clear, and precise. It should possess the scope of the future studies and be capable of conducting more tests. It should be capable of testing it in a, a responsible time, and it must be reliable. Test of hypothesis. There are different types of test of hypothesis, and which are given in such a manner. First of all, null hypothesis. Second one is simple hypothesis. Next is directional hypothesis, uh, complex hypothesis, non-directional hypothesis, causal and associative hypothesis. But we have to first discuss about the null hypothesis. Null hypothesis is a statement that says there is no connection or difference between the different things. Suppose from a given sample, for a given population, we take the some subset from the population, and we assume that we before the testing, we assume that there is no difference between the population and sample. This hypothesis is known as null hypothesis and is also denoted by H naught. Uh, it implies that any any seen impact are because of lack or random variable in the information. The null hypothesis in the null hypothesis of the application is uses in the medical science. Whenever we making a medicine, and for the new a different company, they uses same composition but the different name. They claim that there is no difference between both medicines. uh, in the case of medical science is also in the COVID time, you have seen lots of news in that key. uh, there is no difference between COVID shield and covaxin. uh, so this is the null hypothesis. It states that one variable does not affect the other variable being studied. A null hypothesis asserts that the two factors or groups are independent of each other, and that some traits of the population or process are identical. To contradict or invalidate the null hypothesis, we must assess the likelihood of the alternative hypothesis in addition to the null hypothesis. Alternate hypothesis is just opposite to the null hypothesis. Whenever we take a sample from a population, we assume that the population and samples are both are different. This application is used in the mobile or other car manufacturing. They are claiming that whenever they launch the new product, they said that there is a big difference between version 1 and version 2. So they applying the alternate hypothesis. Alternate hypothesis is the different from the null hypothesis and shows that there is a big connection or big gap between the variables. Scientists want to say no to the null hypothesis and choose the alternate hypothesis. So this is the concept of alternate hypothesis, and it is represented by the H1 or HE. So this is statistical quality control. The statistical quality control measure the quality by the monitoring the manufacturing process. The quality data is collected in the form of product or process measures the measurements or reading from the various machines and instruments. The data is collected and used to evaluate, monitor, and control the process. So the statistical quality control basically control the manufacturing process in the whole other applications in other sectors. Quality control of the SQs is that there is a method ABC analysis which classify the different object in different classes. So the class A, class B, class C. In class A, we put the such element. They define the different classes to identify the quality control of management. Types of quality control of chart: X bar chart, R chart, C chart. Okay class, thank you.